Welcome back, everybody. Today we're talking about the Lumineth Realm Lords and their faction focus, which I think a lot of people were disappointed in for various reasons, including that they didn't really reveal as many new things as other factions because things had already previously been revealed during a test game of Lumineth versus Skaven. Now you might argue that, okay, Lumineth have about the same amount of information revealed as all the other factions, so isn't that just as good? Well, you kind of hope that they would share more things than they did, but we still did get some new information, and there is still a lot to talk about, including the second reason why people might be disappointed is the paring down of the Lumineth battle traits and the different things about their faction, because they were a very micro-heavy faction. There's a lot of spell casting, a lot of different buffs, a lot of Warscroll abilities and things to keep track of, and a lot of that has been taken away. However, that is the case across all of the factions, so we can't get ahead of ourselves just yet. So let's take a look at what's in store for Lumineth, and we're going to start by talking about the lore. We'll talk about the battle traits, the formations, get into the Warscrolls, and finish off with some information about Spearhead and what the developers are thinking and what I think about these changes. Who are the Lumineth Realm Lords, you ask? Well, the answer depends on whomever that question has been posed to. Some may see them as heroes, scholars, or even beings of light, while others might liken them to the high elves of the world that was, or view them as elemental stewards deeply attuned to the environment. Yet there are some humans that will remember the Lumineth as the elves that forced them out of their homes and watched as their houses burned in the name of order. For the Lumineth are unrelenting in their fight against chaos, and they will take whatever steps they see necessary to stem its flow. The Lumineth's history is steeped in both triumph and tragedy. Saved from the clutches of Slaanesh by Teclis and Tyrion, they were gifted the realm of Hysh, where they built great civilizations. Powered by Aether Quartz, the realm stone of Hysh, their minds and creations were enhanced, driving them to seek perfection and outdo their neighbors. This prideful and untethered competition led to the devastating Spire Fall, where the Lumineth nations turned against each other, unleashing devastating weapons and tearing reality asunder. As demons flooded through the rifts, Teclis returned, banishing chaos and sealing the breaches. Though the Lumineth survived, their numbers were decimated and their civilization crumbled. After much time with civilization rebuilt, the Lumineth now follow the guidance of their god and leader Teclis. Having established a powerful bond with Selenar, the spirit of Hysh, Teclis urged the Lumineth to do the same, founding temples across the realm and going to desperate lengths to commune with the spirits of Hysh's nature. Some Lumineth sacrificed themselves in acts of penance, leaping from mountains or drowning in rivers to atone for their past transgressions against the realm. Over time, these fervent acts of devotion bore fruit as the Lumineth forged powerful bonds with the spirits, gaining new allies in their ongoing struggle against chaos and their own emotions. We're going to start by talking about some battle traits for the Lumineth Realm Lords, and there's a lot of information here, and there's a ton of different abilities that they can use. It's going to affect how you actually comprise your army lists once you start building those in 4th edition. But something to be noted here is that almost every single thing that we see was some kind of Warscroll ability or spell that's now not in the game. They're all under battle traits, and they can only happen sometimes for certain units. So in that way, there's less spell casting, there's less reading, but there's also less power. So it's definitely going to be a big adjustment for some, long-time Lumineth players. So what we have here is a passive called Lightning Reactions, which basically means every time it's your turn to pick a unit to fight, you get to pick 2 instead, and you can resolve the second one immediately after the first. This is a incredibly good ability, and you might be asking yourself, why is this so good? How do they get this, over anybody else? And it's because the overall power of their infantry, of their models, is not quite on par in terms of survivability and damage and all these things with some of the other factions. They have tons of good abilities and spells, and they're losing a lot of that now, but they have this to try to even the odds a little bit. So it's a really cool ability, and you love to see it. So then we have Shining Company, which was on a lot of Venari Warscrolls in the last edition, and this is an ability you can use. You pick it at the start of your battle round, and you subtract 1 from hit rolls that for any attacks that target Venari units for the rest of the battle round. Super, super powerful. It's going to take, place on both yours and your opponent's turn. You also have the Move Like the Wind, which is for the Hurricane Warriors. And basically, at the start of a battle round, at the start of the shooting phase, or really like at some point during the shooting phase, you can pick up to 3 Hurricane units that are not in combat to be the targets, and then they can make a move up to their movement characteristic. But you need to, if you want to shoot, you have to do that first, because once you use this, you can no longer use a shoot ability for the rest of the turn. And basically, they're doing that so you don't like move in your movement phase, use this ability to move even further, and then shoot. They basically want you to use this as like a retreat move once you've shot, so you're not gaining like massive advantage. But it is really helpful because you could like move into an objective, shoot at somebody, and then move back, or you could move around them to start circling in at somebody if you want to, which is what we saw happen in one of the battles that was on YouTube. So we also have Power of Hysh, which was a spell before, but now it's something that gives critical hits on unmodified 5-ups for the rest of the battle round. So you can use that, or you can use Shining Company, whereas previously it was very common to have both of these skills active at once. We also have Deep Thinkers, which gives 1 to casting rolls for Cenari units, and the Enduring as a Rock, which subtracts rend from the opponents when they're attacking your Alarith units for the rest of the battle round. Now, there are 4 battle formations. We're moving into battle formations here, and they're very, very much tied to these facets of war. And the reason is because each battle formation is going to be something that allows you to take that facet of war and still use a second one. So let's say your army is mostly Alarith, then you might take the Alarith Fortitude, because it means you can use the Enduring as a Rock ability in addition to any other facet of war ability that you use during the round. And they say that there's going to be more formations for the Hurricane, for the Venari and the Cenari as well. So that means whatever one you pick, you can still empower yourself to use different battle traits and get more out of it. That's really good to know. It's really good. It's really like helpful to build your army. You can pick maybe 2 different kind of types of Lumineth, and you can focus on those really hard because you're going to be reliably able to buff both of them in whatever battle round that you're doing. Or maybe you're picking the Venari one and you're getting both those buffs up like we just talked about. The downside to this is that all of these battle traits and battle formations are really tied together, and you don't get that much else. Like there's not a lot of other things coming on where you can think about, just a passive buff like you get, in other battle formations that we've seen. They're just more like a buff to playing a certain way. Whereas this one, you still get a buff, but it doesn't feel quite as good. It feels like it's all pigeonholed around this one thing. I guess at the end of the day, the effect is that you get a buff. So, I actually don't hate it, but there is a lot to see here in terms of how much just truly has been stripped down from the Lumineth. During the live stream between the World Champ and the runner-up for the World Championships, they did play a Lumineth versus Skaven game, and we learned about the spell lore during that game. So we actually have that image, and there's 3 different spells that you can cast, and it's really, really neat that you get access to all of these. So we have the Speed of Hysh, which is going to just add 4 inches to the target's move, and it's a very easy spell to cast at 5. We have Overwhelming Heat, which is going to have a target's move, so you can use it to debuff your opponent, and if you exceed their save characteristic, you can do D3 mortal damage on it. And we have Protection of Hysh, which gives a 5-up ward whenever they are within 12 inches, wholly within, 12 inches of the caster. So some really cool spells. So this article, we already had that information, so they said, okay, let's talk about something else, the manifestations of Hysh, because we have the Sanctum of Amintok, which is something that you can set up if you meet a 4 or higher. You're going to set it up within the target's combat range, visible to the caster and not in combat. And it has 3 parts that must be set up touching each other so they form a ring with the target inside. So the wizard's actually going to be inside this thing. And the Warscroll for it is really interesting because it doesn't have a save, it doesn't have health, it doesn't have move. It's not like the other manifestations that we've seen that you can attack. Instead, it can be banished, but also if somebody moves out of it, the person that you summoned it around them, then they're basically, you're going to lose this thing. It's just going to disappear. It cannot be picked by the target of any abilities other than banish, like we said. And when you are measuring for range for spells, you can use the measurement of this manifestation instead. The unit that is inside of here has a ward 4, and they get 1 to their power level as a wizard, so they can cast an extra spell. I think this is one of the coolest manifestations we've seen yet, and I can't wait to actually, get one of these and try it out. It's going to be really, really fun. We can talk about Warscrolls next, and I'm really excited for the first one, which is Alenia and Elethor, which are the twins that remind Teclis of himself and Tyrion. And this is a model or set of models that I actually really wanted to get before I even knew about 4th edition. I wanted to get them in 3rd edition, and they're still really cool, so I still really want to get them. So what do you get with these two twins? Well, you get a 4-up save, you get 8 health and 4 control and 6-inch move. You get a Blazing Sunbolt ranged weapon, which has crit auto wound, and it also has a 2 3s to hit, really good, 2 rend D3 damage, very, very potent. The melee weapons are also really good. It's they're very solid. 5 attacks on Al-Tarari, which is a 2 3s and then 1 rend, 2 damage. And then a 3/4 on the Dianair, which is going to be, a rend 1 and a D3 of damage. So just a very decent combat profile. But where this unit is really going to shine is that they are a wizard 1, but also a ward 5 you can see on the keywords at the bottom of their war scroll, and the abilities that they can actually use. So for example, we have the equal prodigies here, where you pick whether Alenia or Elethor will take the lead, and if Alenia takes the lead until the end of the turn, you get 1 to the power level of the wizard, so you can do 2 spells, and you have ward 4 instead of ward 5. And if Elethor takes the lead, then until the start of your next turn, you can add the current battle round number to the damage characteristic of Al-Tarari. So that is going to make it a really, really, and that's the good profile. That's the 5 attack profile. That's the 2/3 profile. So it's going to be incredibly powerful later on in the game. We also have Total Eclipse, which is a 8 to cast, and when it goes off until the start of your next turn, the first time an enemy uses a command within 18 inches of this unit, they must spend an additional command point. So command points are very rare in this edition. This is a really powerful effect. It's slightly, brought down from the previous power level. It only works that one first time they do it. After that, they can use commands however they like. But that tax is going to be a really big deal, and that's going to make this spell incredibly worth casting every single turn. And we also have sudden translocation, which means basically it's teleportation. You can use this when the twins have had any models slain this turn. It doesn't matter where they are. Just if any enemy models were slain, you can use sudden translocation. And what that's going to do is it's going to heal a D6 for the twins. Then you can remove them from the battlefield and set them up again on the battlefield more than 9 inches from any enemy units. And when you use the Equal Prodigy's ability in your next turn, you must pick Alenia to take the lead. And I suppose that's because she's, done the teleportation magic, she's in the lead, but it also might be more of a balance thing, where if you could pick Elethor and you're doing some shenanigans where you deep strike this model out of danger and then right into a super important thing in the 5th battle round, and all of a sudden they have the most powerful melee profile, and it's kind of like, well, how was I supposed to deal with them if they were teleporting? I could see that being a big reason of why, but there's a lore reason for it too. We also have Severith, the Lord of the 7th Wind, and then this is just like a big monster boss, a unique model, really, really cool looking. 18-inch move, massive 18-inch move, 10 health, 4 save, 5 control. It has an awesome bow and a Thry, the Howling Death, 12-inch range, 4 attacks, 2 3s, 3 rend, and then it has a D3+1 shooting combat tag. Oh my goodness. It can shoot in combat, so even if it gets bum rushed, you can still shoot at people, but it has swirling shards for some, minor damage. That's not really why you're using it for the melee. But either way, we have some abilities here. The Living Gale means it cannot be targeted by shooting attacks made from more than 9 inches away from it, right? So you can't shoot at this thing. The winds will not allow it. We also have a once per turn army, any combat phase, Searing Desert Winds. Pick up to 3 different enemy units in combat to be targets, and then roll a d3 for each of them. On the 2+, you inflict that much mortal damage on them, and subtract 1 from wound rolls for the target's attacks for the rest of the turn. So damage, and you're getting a debuff. I love to see it. By the way, this thing can fly. This thing has a ward 5. It's a really cool model and Warscroll. We also have Spirit of the Wind, which means that while friendly hurricane units are within 12 inches of this unit, they can use their shoot and or charge even if they ran or retreated on the same turn, with no mortal damage penalty for retreating out of combat. So we're talking about, with these hurricane models, possibly, moving, shooting at somebody, and they ran, they moved, they ran, then they shot at somebody, then they moved again because of that facet of war that we saw. And then it's the next phase, and they can still charge in as well, and whatever it is, it's pretty crazy. Or maybe they're in combat, they retreat, right? But then they can still shoot, they can still do their second movement because they have that bonus. Okay, we have the Alarith Stone Guard. We already saw these a while back during that live stream, and they're pretty simple. 4-inch move, 4 save, 2 health. They're a little bit beefier. They're Stone Guard hammers, have 3s and 3s, 1 rend, 2 damage. It's a very sturdy, if not unremarkable, war scroll. But what's really cool about them is that they have a 5-up ward while all of its models are contesting an objective. And that just means that you have like they already were kind of like a defensive controlling type unit, but it's just really solidified in this new edition. We can take a look at the Venari Orlon Wardens, which really needed some buffs here. They needed something, and they look a little bit better. They have a 6-inch move. It's a 4-up save and then 1 health, 1 control. So not remarkable yet, but their pikes and blades have a 2 attack, 3/4 profile. They have rend on anti-charge only, and then crit mortal. So that's an ability that we were seeing on any Venari Warscrolls. They had that crit mortal ability already, but now it's a keyword. But here's where it gets cool. We have Wall of Blades. So if this unit did not charge this turn and is in combat with an enemy that did charge, you can roll a dice and add 1 if that enemy is cavalry. On a 4+, the Orlon Wardens have strike first until the end of the turn, or the rest of the turn. That is a really powerful ability, and I love to see it. Really nice way to buff them up against those cavalry, making them even stronger as anti-cavalry units. Okay, in terms of the word from this studio, there's not a lot really to talk about. They just kind of admit that they really wanted to pare down the Lumineth. They had way too much micromanagement going on, and they wanted to build out an army that has more going for it just in the interactions of the game and the decision making that you're doing, and not necessarily the list reading and ability casting. So overall, I'm optimistic about that, because I think that it's going to make them a little bit more fun to play in non-spell casting lists, because they have less spellcasters. Their army, like bigger units, don't cast spells anymore, according to this article. So maybe they're going to be buffed in other ways. I cannot wait to see what the Dawn Riders have now, because I might even be picking up another set of those. And otherwise, they just say they wanted you to play around with having different types of models in your army, and it's definitely more suited to that now, because you're not just picking one specific facet of war. You can now pick at least 2, which is nice to see. The last thing we have to talk about is the Spearhead Preview, and it's kind of interesting because they say in the article that the Orlon Sentinels, the archers, are going to be split into 2 different units of 5. So that's normally a unit of 10, but it's getting split up. Either way, we can see that the facets of war have come back, but the ones that don't apply to the units that are in the Spearhead box aren't there, which makes sense. So you have Shining Company, you have Power of Hysh, and you have Lightning Reactions. So instead of Lightning Reactions just being a thing that you just get to take in this edition, or in this version of the game, instead you have to pick it as a facet of war, and then you don't get the other 2, which is kind of a bummer, but that's fine, whatever it is. Otherwise, we see a Venari Blade Lord war scroll here, and we can see they got 6-inch move. They have a 4-up save, 2 health, 1 control. That's fine. They have their different Great Blade characteristics for their attacks. So basically how it works is you either choose the Great Blade Fury of Blows, which is a very normal type of weapon profile. It has crit mortal, it has anti-infantry +1 rend, that's all great. But if you pick the perfect strike attack instead of doing a attack sequence, you just roll a d6, and on a 2+, you do 1 damage to that target as a mortal damage. That's pretty good. If you have a block of 5 of these guys, you could pretty easily do 5 damage. If you have a block of 10, then you could do some damage. It's very reliable if you want to finish somebody off, or you're just clearing a lot of, low health enemies. If you're fighting something bigger, then you might want to try to get some of that, rend again. Well, I guess, I don't know. If you're fighting something bigger, then you might use the flurry of blows to try to take advantage of the crit mortals, as well as more attack chances, because the Fury of Blows has 3 attacks. This other one only has 1. I don't know. You'll have to kind of work that out. But either way, this is kind of cool to see that has stayed in the game, and I hope that makes its way into the full edition Warscroll, because I know that the profiles here are supposed to be the same as the full edition, but the abilities may not necessarily be the same. Otherwise, we're going to get Slaanesh tomorrow, which makes a lot of sense since we just covered the Lumineth. Great. Looking forward to seeing that. Otherwise, I'm going to see you all in another video. But before we go, I just want to ask again for your support. If you know anybody that would enjoy this Warhammer content, please share this link with them so they can check out the video, because right now YouTube has no idea who to recommend my content to. Like, it's straight up recommending it to literally all sorts of niches, and like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't really pick up that this is Warhammer yet. So any help with that is greatly appreciated. Otherwise, we'll see you all in another video.